I mean, I think it's also a discussion sometimes where, sometimes you have to do the things you don't like to do or want to do in order to get to what you like to do. So I think it's, understanding which is situations where you're selling out and which is situations where you're just sacrificing for, to get to the path where you want to go. So I've been trying to work on distinguishing between that too.
I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether it's solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. All right, guys, welcome back to the Speak Your Life podcast. We are so excited that you're here with us today. Today's special guest is a 2020 graduate of UPenn Wharton School of Business, co-founder of Young Moguls clothing brand, featured on Steve Harvey's show, and is the author of Breaking the System, which you can find on Amazon today, actually. And most importantly, he is on my side when it comes to the LeBron versus MJ argument. Please welcome Jordan Williams.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
let's make this the best one yet.
Yeah. So I mean, like, hey, I was like, watching The Last Dance, and I was like, I mean, like, he did his thing, but it's just, I still think LeBron's the king. So
yeah, me and my dad have a lot of arguments about it. I don't know. Like right now, I'm in the mindset that MJ is the GOAT. Yeah. But I got a lot of respect for LeBron, and he does his thing. But
yeah,
I might be a little biased because of the name. I don't know. What it is, but that's
so maybe I should take back everything I just said.
Yeah, maybe we need to redo the intro. Now I'm just playing.
Maybe I need to drive back home. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, like, I really hope he wins this championship. That would be great.
I do too.
But anyways, we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about you. So, so man, like, before we get started with everything, like, how odd does it feel to like have graduated virtually? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how odd did it feel?
Probably, I mean, definitely at least a 12, I would say. It's definitely really strange. But like, I think it was more strange in the beginning. Like, it felt really weird, after spring break, not going back to school.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen my friends or roommates since spring break.
Okay.
So yeah, for a little bit, like, honestly, it was kind of depressing. Like, a lot of the really fun stuff at Penn, at least, is usually in the time that's like end of the spring semester.
Yeah.
A lot of like the really fun stuff, especially senior year.
Oh wow.
So I mean, but at a certain point, it's just like, you kind of just got to deal with what happens, and you can't change the past. And the scenario is a scenario.
Yeah,
there's a lot of other, pressing problems in the world right now.
Oh yeah, that
are more important than me walking across the stage. So yeah. I think after having a little time for perspective, my mindset now is like, I'm happy to have graduated.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
Whether or not that was across the stage, I will take that diploma and celebrate accordingly. So, I mean, it's a blessing either way. But it's definitely been a little weird for sure.
Yeah, definitely. There's no denying that. And like you said, when you put things into perspective, like, you're healthy. You got your family here that you're with, and you're doing well. So. Yeah. So and there's with everybody, people struggling without jobless, collecting unemployment and etc. So it's just a blessing to be here.
Facts.
But yeah, man. Like, so I mean I've known you since you were a kid, and but tell the audience when you're born, and give us that journey as to learning why you're born.
So I think. I would say that journey is still evolving, and I think I've had moments where like you were saying, I've had a clearer understanding of what I think my purpose is and my calling. Now I'm kind of in the mindset that I realize that it continually changes, and my calling today might be different from what I feel like my calling is in 5 years. But you know, growing up, I would say I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family where that was the energy in the household. Like my dad was always involved in entrepreneurship and starting his own businesses, and my mom was involved and very supportive in those businesses as well. So from a young age, you know, I was always going to my dad's meetings with him, you know, listening to the stuff he was listening to in the car, reading the books he was reading. And I think that type of entrepreneurial energy always rubbed off on me. My dad's business partner at the time, Spencer Iverson, his son Brandon Iverson has always been my best friend, who you know. You know, we've gone to the same church, same school, played basketball together, and we sort of shared that same creative energy growing up. So you know, backtracking a little bit, when we were probably in middle school, we just came together and we're like, okay, let's start our first business. And so we brainstormed for a little bit on what we could do. We came up with the idea to just go around our house, get like old toys and games.
I remember that.
Take some stuff from our parents' room that they weren't using anymore. And just like sell it to friends because everybody, all the talk at the time in class and stuff would be, oh, what games do you have? Can we buy and trade this? So we would sell old toys and games. We would help our friends sell their games. They wanted some, and they pay us a little bit to sell it. So that's when it all started. And then, you know, from there on, it was just new ventures, whether it's making money for teens and Young Moguls brand, or, you know, the book, like you were saying now. But I think that backtracking and looking back, that's where it started. It was started from, you know, the influence from our parents and me and Brandon just having that creative energy to feed off of.
So for everybody out there, he is a young, well, I wouldn't even say millennial.
Technically, I'm
technically
Gen
Generation Z?
Yeah, technically, I'm Gen Z.
Okay.
Yeah, which is weird because I feel like my dad, we were just having a conversation before this, and he was like, "Oh, you millennials."
Yeah, so that's like a term. But I'm like, technically, you're not millennial.
I'm used to just being lumped in. Assign me whatever group.
You're just these young folks. But it's, you know, and I think, and the reason why I bring that is because you know, I think it was Mark Twain that said that the two most important things one is to think about is the day they were born and why they were born.
Right.
And so that, you know, that's why, you know, like, hey, like some people are like, oh, I was born in 79, I was born in 95. I ain't trying to reveal that. What era was it? Like, was it like all right, so at least, like, was it like what stage was it in? Was it like SpongeBob, did that just come out, or like what, like
so if we're talking stages, like when I was born? So we're talking like MJ's 6th ring. Okay. I think that's fitting for us for time's sake. I think that era sort of like on the later side of like shows like Martin and I guess what I call like the prime like black television time. That era. Okay. So I think, you know, for me at least, it's interesting to always I think that's why the MJ doc and like going back and watching Martin and all those shows is real interesting to me, just to get like a sense of, okay, what was, like, I was so young, I don't remember any of these things, but what was it like in this era? And I think it sort of builds that idea of like connectedness that is real important to me, especially like right now.
And you know, and now that you're like growing into becoming a man and all that stuff, and graduating college now, and you know, pursuing what you're meant to do, what do you feel like your why is? You know, not your position, not like what do you feel like your purpose in life is, your why?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I think my why specifically changes at different times in life.
How about right now?
Right now, I think the thing that encompasses all the different whys is trying to be, you know, someone who paves the way for other people and like provides opportunities for other people. So, you know, at certain parts of my life, those other people, it might be like my family, or for a lot of while I was in college, it was providing opportunities for my peers to like connect or help get internships, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
So I think that sense of the why doesn't change. Like it's to serve others, it's to build bridges, it's to build perspective, but in every situation to serve people. So I think overall, in every role, whether it's like a job I'm working or like a business is starting, that's kind of the thing that drives me, is just to find ways to serve and provide value. And my vision has always been like, if you serve and provide and pave ways for other people, it always comes back in return, and you don't really have to worry about the accolades and the money and stuff like that.
And that's kind of actually what your dad talked about in episode 3, actually.
Does he know what he's talking about? I'm just playing.
I think he does.
Yeah,
he's a wise man.
He knows what he's talking about sometimes.
He's been your mentor longer than he's been mine.
Of course. Yeah,
but he has a lot of good things to say, and it was a great episode. But he hinted on just talking about like why character is more important than the car that you drive. I thought that was like a very good highlight to point out, because we live in this day and age where everything's about Instagram and how many likes and people you got on your following and yada yada yada. Like everything's about clout. Like it's like there's no substance. Like what substance do you see out there anymore? So it's great to see young people who are going out there just doing it, and you're out there and you're doing it and you're just trying to provide value to people genuinely and not necessarily trying to like exploit people or nothing like that. So that's that's
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. So I see like father like son. So
that's I think that's true. I'm just following his example.
Hey, this is Teddy from the Wanting Less podcast. I got a quick story for you. In 2018, my life was turned upside down. I found myself broke, depressed, exhausted, newly single after 8 years. Today, almost 2 years later, I've completely altered my financial destiny for the better, landed an amazing woman who loves me for me, and I've increased my happiness exponentially. How did I do this? How did I start fresh, but well this time? It's simple, really. I made it my only focus to determine what mattered most to me, to block out the rest and get after it with a vengeance. Oh, and I didn't do it alone. Listen and subscribe to the Wanting Less podcast wherever you listen, and if you want to learn more, check out wantingless.org. Maybe today's the day that your life takes off. Talk to you soon.
But yeah, man. So you kind of hinted on this earlier. How if you could kind of tap into this more, like how do you feel like your family's entrepreneurial influence has had on you and your growth and your maturation?
I think it's been extremely important, mostly in the terms of mindset. I think that the things I learned from my parents is not as much a set formula for anything, but more so like a mentality for how to approach things. So in terms of entrepreneurship, I think I wasn't always watching my dad like step by step what he was doing, but I was watching his mindset and how he was reacting to problems. So whenever he would one of the stories I like he tells is how he was in the advertising industry coming out of college and trying to get a job, and it was very much a white controlled industry that wasn't very open to minorities, especially black people at the time, and even kind of now. So it was interesting seeing how entrepreneurship was his way of adapting and putting control back into his hands, and creating his own opportunity when it wasn't there. So I think those type of mentality shifts and overall the mindset of just adaptation whenever a challenge comes. I think entrepreneurship is more than just starting a business. It's the mindset of strategically coming up with your own opportunities and adapting when the situation in front of you, isn't something that's easily worked through just with the typical solutions. So I think that's the biggest thing I've got is learning how to think like an entrepreneur in and outside of business, like even just as an individual, to have that mindset of controlling all of your actions and sort of being the CEO of your life in that way.
Good. Yeah, and mindset is so important, and it's like you see so many, like, even as we talked about The Last Dance, bringing it back to Jordan, I like his mindset. It's just like, whether you like him or not, fan or not, like you gotta respect the man's mindset, because it's like he wasn't the tallest, he wasn't the biggest, not really the fastest. Yeah. He's not as athletic as LeBron, but he did what he did, and he made 6 championships and all these accomplishments. With what he had,
right?
And it was about his mindset, his mentality, and the ability of just keep fighting and keep moving. And even when you may have lost, the Eastern Conference Championship to Isaiah Thompson, whom you despise, and it's like that, having that mentality, just like, what, maybe I lost today, or maybe I didn't get what, I didn't achieve the goal that I wanted today, but tomorrow is a new day. Next next season is a new season, so I'm gonna go after it. So, yeah. I think you're right. Mindset is everything, and I think that's what I really enjoy looking at in what society calls successful individuals. Like, is how do they? I think it's one thing to try to copy their actions, and you can try, but a lot of times, like me doing exactly what Michael Jordan did won't work for me. But his mindset, and not just his mindset, but a lot of other people's mindset and their approach to it can be applied to different challenges. So I think that's a really important thing to study. I definitely agree. And as you've grown, and you talked about the selling the toys, was it Kids Toys Inc?
Kids Toys Inc. That was the name.
I still remember the name.
Honestly, we were just applying like any word to apply to the situation. We're like, we're kids, so we sell toys, and it's a business.
I mean, it's pretty logical to me.
So I think that shows where our mind was at.
Yeah, but like, how do you feel like you took some of those lessons? What were some lessons that you learned from that experience that you've implemented today, and like who you are now?
That's a good question. I think there's definitely a lot of lessons. I think on the simplest level, like one of the main lessons was just knowing the people that were considered our target market. And at the time, we would have never called it like our target market, but we were doing great market research because we were communicating with the people that we thought we could provide value to. So at that time, it was being with those people, having conversations, knowing about what games and what fads and trends were popular, and when we did a good job of that, we knew how to cater best to what those people were seeking. So I think that's a simple example of it then, but even as projects and business endeavors have gotten more complicated, that doesn't change. And I think you see that even in society with some of the biggest companies, the ones that do it the best are the ones that are really connected and in tune with the people that are the ones that's trying to sell to or provide value to. So I think that was one. I think also it was just having that genuine interest in what we were doing and like what our mission was. So I think that's something that I've kept with other projects as well, is that I can't really long term feel like I'm going down a successful route and put enough effort into stuff if it's not something I'm really passionate about. So at the time, like the gaming industry and working on stuff for my peers and connecting with them and having those conversations was something that was really interesting to me, and I think that that's why we we're able to, you know, put so much time and energy into it, because like we really loved doing it. So that's something I've tried to sustain in everything else I'm doing, is like, if the passion and the love for it isn't there, even if it makes a ton of money, maybe I need to, you know, pivot, because I'm not just, you know, I'm not trying to go through life doing stuff I don't like doing.
Yeah.
So
That's true. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, you know, I've read different surveys. Some of them said like as much as like 87% they are miserable at their jobs, and that's really sad. That's really unfortunate. So,
and it's a hard situation. Like, I mean, I think it's also a discussion sometimes where, you know, sometimes you have to do the things you don't like to do or want to do in order to get to what you like to do. So I think it's, you know, understanding which is situations where you're selling out and which is situations where you're just sacrificing for, you know, to get to the path where you want to go. So I've been trying to work on distinguishing between that too.
The BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agreed public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position, or maybe you have already been in the job market for some time now and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons to become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I never thought of it that way. Like, you know, sacrificing versus selling out. Like, what like, how do you describe that?
So I guess like, so for instance, right now, post graduation, I'm going into a job in wealth management. So, like a sort of like a dream job for me right now, at least, would be, you know, getting to be a financial advisor and work with my own clients, and you know, hopefully get to focus on the sports and entertainment realm, and get to run my own business there.
Cool.
So yes, that is a dream job, but like being in a real sense, I have to put in a few years of, you know, learning and taking license exams and you know, getting the knowledge and the expertise to do that. So, you know, it's not, that process isn't always fun, of like having to study and take the hard exams and you know, do the assignments that are at the bottom of the totem pole sometimes. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a sacrifice. So I think those type of things versus, you know, going to a job in investment banking and getting paid a huge salary, and you know, it's a great salary, but I don't really feel passionate about doing it every day, and I don't feel like the sacrifice is leading to anything that I'm passionate about. So I think it's, you know, trying to recognize, okay, like what I'm doing right now, do I like it? And if I don't, is it necessary to get me to what I like? Or if I don't like it and I'm doing it, why am I doing it? Like, is it for an image? Is it for more money? Like, how much does the money really matter to me? Just being able to sort of question those motives at every step along the process, I guess.
Because there's you know, there's a lot of people that they don't really maybe they don't notice it, or they just don't care. Like they just, you know, they sell their soul, or they just, I don't know, they just give up who they really are, their values, for that job, that internship, you know, that whatever, that contract, and it's just like, you see some people just sabotage their life after they've, you know, taken it to the quote unquote next level. And it's just sad. It's just so sad, because some people are just like so miserable, even though they got like a contract worth like, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So it's just, I don't know. And you see people like that who really are miserable, and they give up their values, they give up who they really are,
right?
Just to appease an audience, or I don't know, whoever they're trying to appease, and they end up, unfortunately, either experiencing mental health issues or getting into drugs, and there's just so many consequences of selling out versus like sacrificing.
And I think what you said earlier is interesting. Like I think being in the social media era and the era of being so connected and knowing what everybody else is doing makes it even harder a lot of times. I think if social media wasn't a thing, it wouldn't be as big of a burden to not take the job that you're not really passionate about but pays a lot, or I don't think it would matter as much to just do what you love regardless of what people would think about it or not, because they might not see everything.
Yeah, that's true. And when it comes to passion, what made you so passionate about helping others when it came to your book, Breaking the System? Or Break the System?
I think the passion came from personal experience, but it took a different step when I realized that the personal experience related to other people's personal experience. So I think, in a lot of the different projects that I've been involved in, the interest starts when I realize it's something I struggled with. So, a lot of the topics in Breaking the System are based on my own personal struggles and insecurities, bad experiences, good experiences, all of that. But if I hadn't, connected with other people and known that they were going through the same stuff, it might have just remained journal entries that is just for my own sake. So I think the step that made me passionate about sharing it and making it a published project was knowing that, okay, other people can relate to this and maybe this project can help them too. So I think that's been the switch, not just for that but for everything, for the YED Summit we do in the summers, for even back to Kids Toys Inc. If it was just when you see that other people can benefit, I think that's when the action gets spurred sometimes. That's great.
And and you've gone through all these experiences of the Kids Toys Inc. And Young Moguls brand, and now you have your book, you have all these things going. What do you like? What's been the most embarrassing thing that's happened?
That's a good question.
That you've learned and you've grown, and that's really was a pivotal moment, but maybe was embarrassing.
So I think there's been a lot of embarrassing moments. A lot of the good moments start with embarrassing moments. So like, starting a clothing line and nobody really buying it at school at first is an embarrassing moment. I think that sometimes having public speaking events, when we were doing the Making Money for Teens thing and nobody coming is embarrassing moments. And sometimes even starting in general and working on a project and showing that you care about something is an embarrassing moment, and it's a vulnerable thing. So I think that those events have been frequent, whether whether it's talked about or not. And I think that it's important as well, because I think it's sort of a humbling thing. To make you consider why you keep going, if you do keep going. Because I think after a lot of those embarrassing moments, it strips the idea that you're just doing this for your own image. At this point, after being embarrassed, if I keep doing it, I'm only doing this because I think that's
you
important.
Really love it.
And the same goes for like when we do the YED Summit conference for college students in the summer. It's full of embarrassing moments. Like going on campuses, passing out flyers, and people like rejecting it and not caring. Not having ticket sales till like 2 weeks before the event. And having to like still promote it like it's going well. Those are all embarrassing moments, but I think those embarrassing moments are checked for yourself to be like, okay, if your pride takes a hit, like what is your real motive in doing this, and not for them to know your motive, but for you to like reflect in those moments, because I think, you know, without it, those motives can get very skewed if it's just smooth sailing and everybody praises it from the beginning. So yeah, I think that's a good question. I think those moments have been important.
It's you know, I kind of think of it this way. You know, our parents do everything that they can for us, and you know, sometimes they go out of their way. They maybe look bad. You know, like dad, I see dads like, you know, in the park like making silly faces for their kids just to make them happy. But it's because they really love their kids, not because they care about the embarrassment of everybody else around the park who doesn't even know them. Like, you know, the only person that really matters is their kid that's in front of them right there in that moment. And that's kind of how I think of, you know, your passion. Like, that's your baby that you're cultivating, and then, you know, you feel so much love towards that passion, that baby, so to speak. And maybe you're embarrassing yourself, you're making silly faces, so to speak, but that's part of the process, so that baby, that passion can grow into something bigger, that will provide value to so much, you know, so many people in the world. That's
such a good point. I think that's real interesting. I'm reading a book about that now, which it kind of talks about the same thing, like what you choose. I think what you choose to be able to, or be vulnerable enough to be embarrassed about, says a lot about what you care about. So I agree with what you're saying for sure. And but it's you know, I think we live in such a world where it's like picturesque, and everything's about the right filter, and let me frame this the right way, or let me, you know, sometimes I even have to like be careful how much I'm editing this podcast. Like I was like, you know, maybe I remember like your dad, like he was on my podcast, and then I think he messed up on one of ours, and I was just joking. I'm like, oh, it's time for you to go to bed. You should pass your bedtime. but he was like, oh, let's edit. I'm like, no, I think that was actually one of the funniest moments of the whole podcast. Exactly.
So like sometimes our quote unquote embarrassing moments are really setting us up for like, wow, that's, you know, people are like, wow, I can relate to that. This guy is not so like perfect, you know, you know, such a, you know, perfect, you know, picture perfect guy that I can't relate to. You're just like some piece of plastic.
So true.
So, that's so true. And that's what I love about, you know, just podcasts versus like, you know, just the typical streams of media, like, you know, CNN, Fox, etc. Because like, you know, they have their place, but at the same time, like, you know, you get your real authenticity, you know, these vulnerable stories here. And, you know, I mean, there's some editing, but like, as far as like the overall scope and you know, there's an overall genuine perspective when it comes to, you know, this industry. And that's why I love podcasting. So, but and to go back to what we were talking about earlier, just like the whole thing about like our generation, our younger people, like, you know, Generation X or whatever. See, I don't care, whatever.
Step in the alphabet.
Y, Z, all that stuff. Like, we're so focused, like, we just, oh man, I don't want to fail, but like, you gotta fail. You gotta fail. Like,
literally,
it's better to fail earlier than to fail later. Because like, man, it's like all these things that you've learned and, you know, tripped over, and you wrote, you know, other books before, and then you're like, all right, so I've learned my lesson about this, and and now, you know, you're where you are. So like, a lot of people, you know, are like, wow, how did that person get to that place? But I'm like, you didn't see all the trips and falls beforehand, like that it took to get to, you know, where you were, like, you know. So I don't know, J.K. Rowling, you know, one of our favorite authors.
You know,
I know
Harry Potter stan.
I love that woman. You know, she, you know, I guess rejected so many times. You know, nobody wanted to publish it. That was a big mistake.
Big mistake. Woo! $1 billion was a mistake.
$1 billion industry right there, man. And so I just like, it's a blessing to fail sometimes, and it's just, you know, you learn. You're like, hey, well, maybe this didn't work out, and this other thing, maybe I just need to readjust things, and you know, see how I can redo it, and then try again. So. Yeah. But you look like you were thinking about something.
No, I think it's true. Like I think you have to continue to fail. Honestly, like I think a lot of times we think of success as if it's, you know, a destination and you fail a few times and then get there. I feel like it's just not the case. Like failing is something that if you want to be really good at whatever you do, like you have to do it. Yeah. Even when you get really good at it, like it's literally the only way to improve or learn is to like fail or learn from other people's failures. And of course, it's always better to learn from other people's failures, but like those are lessons literally. So they do matter, and they are actually valuable opportunities when you do run into them. So
yeah. And so you know, as far as like, you know, you sound like you're on the trail of giving some advice out there. So like what would be some practical advice that you would give to like young professionals out there that, you know, that feel stuck? They are, you know, that, you know, they want to move forward towards their dreams, but they're just like, man, I don't know how to get started. I don't really know how to, I don't know, just jump out there, get out there.
Yeah. So I agree with this. I was just reading this one book that was talking about that a little bit, and I agree with what it said. I think there's like a paradox to starting where, you know, we tend to think that we tend to like wait on the power and the readiness and being equipped enough to do something, when I think it actually starts with action. And then, you know, once you start, you slowly become more adjusted to doing it. Like with swimming or something, like you can't ever wait to become a good swimmer. There's nothing you can really do besides try it. And I think, you know, business,
hopefully you don't drown,
and hopefully you don't drown. And of course you try it with guidance, and you tried it with baby steps or in the shallow end.
That's true.
But like, there's no way around the fact that you just have to do something. Yeah. And it sounds so simple, but like, you have to do something on the small level. Like if your goal is to start, you know, a restaurant, you have to start cooking at home or something and sell it from your home. Exactly. And eventually, like, once you start, I think action sparks motivation and inspiration and ideas. So like when you start on a basic level doing the simplest of things, like, you know, walking or in a shallow pool or swimming in a shallow pool, you get ideas and strategies for how you can build this and how you can, you know, scale it to bigger. But I think we're in a society so much where like nobody wants to start until it's on the grand scale. And I think it goes back to the social media thing. Like nobody wants to be an author until it's, you know, the best-selling book that's their first book. Like just start where you are, where you're at, and build your way instead of trying to, you know, perfect behind the scenes and then hop out and be like, all right, I'm done now. Like just go through the process. I think the process is part of what makes the end result like mean something in the first place. It's building. That's good. Like, you know, building as you go and just getting better and better and better. Cause like, you know, I don't know why I just, for some reason I just thought about Nas, like how I really got into him recently, and just like how one of the biggest things in his career, the biggest stumbling blocks, was his first album. Wow. Like, Illmatic was in 1994 was his number one album, like, supposedly, and so like, and it was a really good album, but the thing was like everybody compared his second, his third, and fourth album compared to that, and then he was just like, it isn't, and like he was so stuck on that, like his career was stuck on that one album that kind of hindered him from like being like GOAT conversation, like you know, the, you know, part of the, you know, the like with Tupac and Biggie and stuff like that. He's like right out looking in. He's like third, you know, right before Jay-Z. So, but that, you know, like, and those are different cases. Like those are cases you can never predict stuff like that. But just to kind of go back to what you're saying about like waiting until everything's perfect, and then I'm gonna, you know, I want to make sure the light is on me first. But it's better to make those like mistakes while you're doing it for free, while you're doing it as a quote unquote amateur, so that you're like getting better and better and better and better, so that your first work of art is not like the shadow, and it gets everything that you have after that is compared to that, and it's just like okay, well, and then your career is like
almost over before it really starts. So
you always have to level up. Yeah, true. That's something to keep in mind. Like I feel like people, and I think that's something that's like a consequence of success that people don't think about. Like once you get to the success you're looking for, like that's now your standard, which is like a beautiful thing to have, but that's another, like, it's just never a destination. Like whatever your destination is about to be your standard for what's next. So like that Illmatic album, your now has to be the standard for what's better than that.
It's, and that's the thing, you don't even see it.
You don't even see it at the time.
That's the craziest part about it. So man, that's crazy. And so, you know, as you know, we as black men are, you know, developing in our careers and our purpose and stuff like that, and just trying to get to the better version of ourselves each and every day. How is it important, like, as a, you know, how is black entrepreneurship sacred now more than ever? Like, you know, just development of that. Like, I'm starting to see more black banks. I'm starting to see more, you know, black movies, you know, really good ones like the Black Panther and, you know, other things like that. Like, how important is black entrepreneurship now more than ever?
It's super important. So, I mean, like right now, I think historically we've kind of been in the thought process of that, you know, there's these top white spaces, quote unquote, or the prestigious spaces that are majority white that we need access and representation in. And I think that's true. Like, I think it's true that, you know, the best, you know, programs or the best companies, you know, there definitely deserves to be black presence in those places, and we should fight for that fair opportunity. I think now in society we're realizing how important it is to, like, not only ask for representation but also, you know, focus on building our own in turn, and requiring that, you know, support from this system that has set us back 400 years helps build our own too, since it's old. So I think while fighting for, you know, spaces in those white dominated areas, is also important to simultaneously be building up our own spaces that we have control over as well. You know, everything in our communities. And I think black businesses are something that's sort of at the heart of being able to uplift those communities. So like we were talking about before, I think it's interesting how these type of situations and current events always make people hyper aware of where their dollar is going, because the country we live in, money is kind of synonymous with power. So I think, like we were talking about before, it's important to understand how this, you know, hyper awareness of where we spend our money on the day to day. Important that it lasts, and also important that you know, it can be diversified into different type of things, not just where we eat or where we shop for clothes, but you know, where we bank, who we buy houses from. Just diversifying the types of different, you know, black entrepreneurs that we're supporting. And I think that's just as important as you know, being hyper aware, but building those different types of areas too. And because I remember in your book you talked about, like, sometimes, you know, we want a seat at the table, but honestly we can just create our own table. And I really like that statement, because it kind of connects with what we're talking about now. You know, where we're living, you know, in a day and age where, you know, for so long, you know, white has been the standard of, you know, success and stuff like that. And I just think success has no color. It's not white or black. It's not Latino. It's not Asian. Success is success. Exactly.
And I think people can recognize that no matter what culture, race, or whatever you come from, people recognize success. And that they're not colorblind to that. So, and when it comes to that, you know, you have the Tyler Perry's, you know, creating his own studio. You're like, why, you know, okay, people can settle for Hollywood studios. but I'm gonna create my own, and I'm gonna create the biggest one there
Right.
is. So it's just so important to like, create your own spaces and places because like like you said before, it kind of is the basis for empowerment
Right.
and motivation for our community. So, but as we're wrapping this up, what do you feel like your house stands on? If life is like a house, what do you feel like, in addition to faith and family, what do you feel like, your house, what is one solid value your house stands on?
So in terms of my personal house or like...
Yeah, you're like what?
So I would say if my life specifically is a house, it stands on, like you said, faith. I would say empathy. I would also say, humility in the sense of like caring to learn and caring to hear about other people's perspective.
Yeah.
And right now I think those are like, and giving, I would say is the last one. I think those are the three things that kind of sums up everything. Like, the empathy to know, be able to try to listen to other people's perspective and like entertain thoughts, whether I think is right or not, or whether I agree or not. Like humility to know that I'm wrong about a lot of stuff and to question everything that I do and everything I believe in consistently. And the value of just wanting to like live a life that is serving some kind of purpose that's bigger than myself. I think those are kind of the three that especially right now, I'm trying to base everything on. Personal life, career, family, everything. So that's what I would say.
Okay, good. And as that wraps up, and we're heading into the last segment, which is question of the day, where we just asked a random question. And today's question of the day is, who's going to be in the NBA Finals, and what's going to be the result of the series?
That's a good question. So I think the Lakers will make it. That's tough. The West is tough. I think me saying the Lakers will make it is just off of like personal what bias. I would like to see.
Same here. I would like them to go.
I think I would call it Lakers versus Bucks. I know that's an easy route to go, but that's just how I see it playing out. As far as who wins, that's tough. Like, I think the Bucks should win, but I think the Lakers would. Or I would want. This is all like just what I would want.
Rest in peace, Kobe. This is all an honor.
Rest in peace, Kobe. I hope you're listening to this. So I would say that's my personal what I would like to see. Lakers
4-3. Was it in Game 7 or how does
that would be crazy if it did. Like assuming Giannis is healthy and playing, and knowing how competitive he is, I would hope he would take it to 7. I just know, I just have a feeling LeBron's going to be a dog when he comes back. I think he's going to have I think he's been waiting for this for a long time. So that's what I would say. I'll go 4-3 Lakers.
Okay, cool. Same here. So, all right, at least we can agree on that. So, even though we didn't agree with the Jordan thing, but
that's okay. That's okay.
But anyways, we thank you all for listening for today's episode. Thanks, Jordan, for joining in with us.
Thank you.
And be sure, guys, to check out his book and order it today on Amazon. That's Breaking the System by Jordan Williams. You can also follow him on Instagram. Is it JP Williams?
JP Will 23.
JP Will 23.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, and thank you again. Subscribe. Be sure to do that, and whether you're on Spotify, Google Play, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, be sure to also leave a review if you connected with anything on today's show. And if you have any questions, comments, or just want to hit us up, and you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at SpeakYourLYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. And last but not least, podcasts are free to listen to, but are not free to produce. So if you are part of the Speak Your Life community, or you're new and you are wanting to join, you can support the podcast with as little as $10, $5, or even $1 a month on our Patreon account, which I'll leave a link below. Thanks again for joining us and tuning in. We love you guys, and we'll catch you in the next episode.